There you go, guys.
Boy, you're talented.
Well, we'll see. We miss Max. I miss Max a
Well,
lot.
sure.
You're gonna call it, or you wanna just?
I'm gonna try my best. Here, she said she's in Rangeley,
Oh, okay.
so if she can't be gotten, she's sorry.
Hello.
Hello, we are here live. Hi. Can you
Let
hear?
me get my phone up. I'm talking on my watch. My phone was away somewhere. Okay.
No.
I think I can now. I think I left my phone in the car. I think I have to go out and get it.
Okay, well, call me back.
Are you there?
Yes,
Okay.
call me back.
Okay.
If you want to dispense with the.
Well said.
Yeah, we can start.
I guess we'll call the meeting to order. The pledge of allegiance is first.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no public hearings. Any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none. Citizens' comments. Anybody got anything to say? Good or bad? Say no. Select board comments. Bob?
Just Happy New Year, everybody. Sorry that we're having to have the meeting today. But that's the way it is. We're doing our job.
It is. Colonel?
I concur with Bob. Happy New Year. And I'm really glad to be here to see your bright, shiny faces.
I had no comment this week.
Okay, cool. Town manager's report.
I have no comments this week.
Shall we wait, do the consent calendar, or do
I'm waiting for her to call back. It might take her a while to find her phone. I don't know.
you want us to approve the consent calendar to move things along?
It's the warrants that Tanya put on that she'd like to have you sign.
Somebody make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay. New business, Jefferson EMS service discussion.
So, Bob and I went last night to the Jefferson Select Board meeting. So I'll give you an overview. And there was a lot said last night that I have to say, it wouldn't have mattered what I said. I think there's a preconceived notion, unfortunately. And that's saddened me. And I think what dismayed me and saddened me the most was the fact that it appears that at least 2 out of 3 of their select board members do not value the service we provide them. In fact, at the end, is it Johnson?
He's not on the select board, but he's their fire chief. I believe.
No, the gentleman up on the right,
Oh,
the select board member, he was on the right.
Yeah.
Actually said that they weren't happy with our service, because I made the statement that I know you've always been pleased with our service, and apparently he's received complaints. I've never heard any. I've only ever heard good things. And I actually have to say, I called Richard on the way home because that so dismayed me. I was shocked by that. There's definitely a misconception of revenue. It appears that they don't like the formula based on strictly expenditure. They would like to share in the revenue, but they want to share in the good revenue. but they don't want to own what they have outstanding that we haven't collected from calls. And they don't want to own when we respond and there's no patient to transport. They don't want to own that, but they want to own the revenue. And I think they have this, they don't understand there's a cost to those things. And I don't think, I just want to get Jan. Hi, Jan.
Hi there.
Hi, I'm just giving an overview of what happened last night.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
So I think they don't understand that we made these changes to improve, we were in trouble. I kept hearing, well, we didn't get answers until December 14th. I mean, Bob, that was said repeatedly. And I have to say, because I did not have the emails in front of me, I do tonight. I want to put it on the record because I was shocked. I was shocked at the tenor of some of that. But I think you all know, because I've kept you informed, on August 18th, I sent them an email saying I've had scheduled a discussion between the Town of Waldeboro Select Board and our Emergency Medical Services leadership to discuss concerns relative to the ability to staff and retain our emergency medical services personnel and the potential impacts this may have on service to our communities. As a recipient of our services, I wanted to be sure you knew in advance of our meeting, Tuesday, August 24th. Again, they never showed up. I mean, if you'll recall, Wiscasset came, they didn't come. On Tuesday, September 21st, I sent them, Dear Jefferson Select Board members, I'm writing to inform you of a serious issue with our EMS coverage. I gave them your responsibility based on our current budget would be 11.7% of the operating budget totaling $110,122, not including any capital requests, just to give you an idea of what we are facing. Richard Lash, our EMS director, and myself are available to meet with you. That was September 21st. We were supposed to go to the Monday, October 18th meeting. I was called that morning and told, don't come. I'll get an email with all their questions. And then after that, for our emails, the next email I got from them was November 17th. So November 17th, they asked me for additional information pertaining to your 2022 budget request. They want income projections as well as a list of requested amounts broken out by town for your 2022 budget. Well, we're in our 22 budget. So I responded, and I believe I called Lynn. I had a conversation with her. And then on Tuesday, November 30th, I gave them our revenue, because that seemed to be what was bothering them. I told her we're still working on the 2023 budget. And I reminded them, we're a fiscal year, they're on a calendar year. And I said, I do think there is value in our EMS director, a representative of our select board, and I coming to your board meeting so we are all on the same page as far as how the new billing will work. I am fearful we are talking apples and oranges. We have not broken down the expenses by town, only anticipated revenue by town. And that was evident last night too, when the first thing out of when they were dealing with the revenue was, we pay you $7,000 in revenue and you have in your budget $2,000. And I was like, but we are a very conservative town. That's how we budget. And they could not, in my opinion, get past why we budget the way we do. And we budget the way we do because we want to make sure that we're as close to the revenue as we can get, because we have to be realistic. We're going into another COVID year. And if you'll recall, there was a significant loss of revenue in 2020. And I mean, I think, Bob, that was very evident when I explained the budget is a tool for us. I think they may out there, and I can't speak for them, but I got the impression it's possible it is possible that we budget differently than them. They might budget everything, they might fully anticipate everything. I don't know what they do, but we don't fully anticipate. And we plan in our expenses for the worst, which I think is why we've had so much success with our surplus and how we are. So I think that was eye-opening. So I think they felt that we didn't respond till December 14th. Well, then I was on vacation the week before December 13th. And I sent this earlier, is there something else they wanted? That is the budget we are in. Did they want invoicing for Friendship? And then it was, they want to know how many ambulance calls, how much did each town, including Waldeboro, pay for calls in 2019 and 2020? I gave her that. We increased our cost to be able to provide services and to ensure the calls are answered. And I've made it clear, and I think we've been clear from the beginning when this all started, that it's not a negotiation. I mean, I don't, the cost is the cost, and you can't massage it to the way you want it. There's a cost for us to provide the service. I understand that. Well, for years, it's been done this way. Things have changed, and we have to do it differently. We have to treat our EMS workers like they're professionals. It's a profession. We've gone through a lot of hoops to get to where we are, to where we have our schedule back. And they kept saying, well, we have no problem with the increase in pay. But that affects what you're going to pay. And honestly, it was treated more like a mutual service than a service contract. And that hasn't been fair to us.
No, it's cost the taxpayers of Waldeboro quite a bit of money, substantial amount of money.
So, and part of the thing too that was telling to me was the questions they weren't answering, like asking, like, how much is our outstanding balance from what you bill to what you're paid? How many calls didn't go with a transport where you would make money? I even brought up that when we're answering calls that have no patient to bill, we could have been doing a transfer. So none of that seems to matter as much as your budget's $1 million, your revenue is $600,000, the 11.7% should be on the difference between the two. That's what they want. That's their mindset. They don't want to hear about revenue losses. They don't want to share in those. They don't want to take responsibility and say, okay. So that was a little concerning. I suggested, and their response was, well, we can't possibly do this because we have to go to the voters. I suggested ARPA funds. Apparently that's already been earmarked for something else. And when I went back, because I got the impression they might have been shocked, like this was news to them. But yet I brought up the Lincoln County News article because on October 6th, it was front page news. And so they've known. I suggested ARPA funding. That's already been, I guess, earmarked for broadband. Special town meeting. Well, we can't have one before the 1st. I'm like, but you've known since September. And then she kept saying, we don't know anything. We haven't had, you haven't answered anything till December 14th. I was going to take issue with that, but again, I wanted the records in my hand before I got into that debate. A special town meeting, they could do that. Tax anticipation notes, that's another option. Because if the voters voted down, we've then run 3 months and not been compensated. One of the comments that the select woman made was, our residents pay health insurance. So why should they have to pay for that? I mean, I didn't even know, I didn't know how to answer that. Everybody pays health insurance, and I know I live in a town where I have to also pay for ambulance service. You know, and part of it is, you know, there were things said at this meeting, like, you know, well, we'll look into other services. You know, we didn't hear from them till November. And, you know, we were canceled, the meeting we were supposed to go to. And what was dismaying to me last night was, they're like, well, what are you going to do when January 1st comes? I said, well, I'm going to have to talk to my select board. But it made us the villain. I mean, I will tell you, last night, I felt like, this is on you. You did this to us. Who do we tell to call when there's no ambulance? Well, again, we just provide the service. It's the select board of Jefferson that has to determine who provides that service. And I think maybe, and this is pure conjecture on my part, that they got behind the 8 ball and now they realize, uh-oh, and now it's on us. And we're the bad people in this. We're the mean town charging them. And in it, you know, and I'll be really honest, I was honest with them last night. We've had representatives from their town, department heads, come visit our department heads about this. But no one has had the courtesy to walk in my office and sit down, or to go to Richard and sit down until this afternoon. Someone in a position of authority called Richard. That is the first contact. And I find that to be, I'm dismayed by it, because we've had different experience with other towns that we've had to work with. There was a gentleman sitting in the audience who decided we needed to be audited. And I'm like, you know, it's pretty much an open book. But again, I think they're hung up on, we make money off of you. And I don't think they grasp the concept of nobody in EMS makes money. But it really was astonishing to hear the lack of value that they gave the service. And really at the end, I was shocked. You know, I told them that they should consult with their attorney to see what they can do as far as payment. But it really was stunning to hear, you know, this somehow was our fault. We were late to the table when we started ringing the bell in August. We rang it in September. The billing was clear how we were doing it. It had nothing to do with revenue, because revenue fluctuates. And I mean, Richard can tell you, and I even read them, our shortfalls we've had over the years. There was one utilization that was crossed out, which was a less in the revenue. I did not remember what it was last night, but that was the $70,000 loss during COVID. You know, so again, if we have another $70,000 loss in COVID, well, we're getting the revenue, but we don't want to talk about those losses. And that's where I think, and it wasn't like we were invited up to the table here, let's look at everything together. It was a very different feel from my perspective. Different than what we experienced in Friendship, different than what people experience, I think, when they come here. So, Bob, am I wrong? I mean, you were there too, so.
No, and I also got the feeling that they were trying to figure out among themselves, after having done nothing basically since August and not meeting with us in any formal or informal setting to talk about the issues. They were trying to figure out how to sell it to their voters, or how to discuss it or present it to their voters. For them, it was a political issue. And from where I was sitting, they weren't looking at this as a medical emergency issue. They were looking at it politically. Well, it's not political in Waldoboro, and it sure as heck isn't political in the other towns that we work with. I don't know why it would have to be with them, but that seemed to me to be their major concern. How do we explain this change to our voters? Well, if they'd sat down with us in September They would have thought of a million ways to explain it, a million COVID ways to explain it. But there was no interest in doing that. And when I left the meeting, I kind of felt the way Julie did.
And I think part of that was too, they brought up CLC. Well, CLC did this, and CLC is a private organization, nonprofit. And they met privately. They actually went to Nick's office and sat down and met with Nick.
Not with us.
Not with us. We were taken to be publicly flogged. I mean, honestly, that's how I felt. And villainized. And that's when, if that's how they want to proceed, that's fine. I answer to the select board in Waldeboro and the people of Waldeboro. I even volunteered. If you want, we'll come to your open town meeting. We'll do whatever we need to do to try to explain it. But it did not feel like, no matter what I said, it wasn't right. They didn't want to hear it. He kept saying, the gentleman on the right, whose name I wish I remembered. There was a guy with an E name sitting in the corner, and then he's a farm. He has a farm, I think, in Delmar's-Scott. And then there was the select woman, and then there was a gentleman. I thought that was Mr. Johnson. I could be wrong, but anyway, he kept saying your numbers are wrong because he didn't understand what the formula was. I think the formula was based on expenditures, not on revenue. He wanted that revenue taken out, but again, not address the 71. I'm sorry,
paid for.
61.
Oh, 60.
62, or the $42,204.28 in outstanding billing. Didn't even ask about that.
Yeah.
Didn't even ask about that.
Waldeboro were going to be sucking that up.
And
paying for.
they didn't like the fact that we know CLC covers so much area. We cover so much area. We based it on population percentage and all that. And I wanted to say, if you want to figure it this way, no matter how you figure it, it's that number. But you still gotta, Richard told me today, there's times on 17 by Peasley's, they send 2 ambulances. That's 4 crew members out, 2 ambulances to 17 for nothing, and we come back, we get nothing for it. So I just think there's this misconception out there that somehow we make a ton of money.
And we make all that money off the insurance companies who don't pay us. What
Well,
we in
but
turn
there's
cost.
contractual obligations that we can charge up to. You have Medicare issues. It was disheartening to say the least. I expected some of it, but I did not expect. I expected the select board to understand the gravity of the situation, so that they would say, you know what, it's a hard pill to swallow. I even said at one point, the glass, you should look at the glass as being half full. All these years, this is what you were given and paid. And now's the time where you look at towns that have provided this service. And I think the other thing is too, from our standpoint, is we're providing you a service. They see no value to that. Like you should just get what the insurance gives you, and that's it. There's no, we're providing the service. We're the provider of the service to you. I mean, if they were to go out and contract with a private entity, they're going to say, this is the price. And I would have thought, and I'm certainly not telling them how they should operate, because everybody does their own thing. If I got that letter in August about we have issues, I would have been here. When I got that call, when I got that email about what it was going to cost, I would have been here. And if I was unhappy about it, which obviously there were based on the comments that were in the newspaper, I would have been exploring my options. So I kind of feel like they perhaps didn't do their due diligence So now we have to be painted as we are the big bad town that's out to make money on the backs of their residents. And that's absolutely not what ours was. And if anybody's been paying attention, we've been beating the drum about, it is about making sure we are staffed. How do we do that? That's what the whole town vote was about 2 weeks ago, was about how to attract and retain so that we don't have this issue again. You know, and I just, that's how I.
Are they looking at, it's a Waldeboro issue, so why do we even get involved? So, you know, it's still their issue, even though Waldeboro is the one doing the work. It's still their issue because they have no coverage if we don't.
Well, the select woman last night basically said it was my, I mean,
It's not
correct me
our
if I'm
issue.
wrong. No, she squarely put it on us. It's up to you to
It's not our
decide.
issue. We're the ones that get the ambulances. They don't.
But that was her perception, was this is on you. This is you, because I mean, it was, I was shocked. It wasn't, but now I will say in defense, the gentleman whose name I wish I remembered, but it's a neat name. He sat in the corner.
Sat on the left.
On the left.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. He's like, you know, we need to be reasonable. Like, he was great. Like, I think he got it. And I think he truly looked at it and said, but I think he kept saying, but I think the voters will approve it. Like, he was really like, you know, we kind of like, we need this is serious. I think he got it. I don't know. I didn't get that warm, fuzzy feeling from anybody else. And I'm not saying he liked the idea, but he understood the idea, and he understood
The severity.
the severity. And I just want to say this, and I for the entire select board here and the budget committee, I want to include the budget committee in this. When we had that initial meeting, the fact that you all took it so seriously and actually worked hard. And when Richard came with then Deputy Director Derek Booker, and they stood up there, you guys got it. You know, it wasn't long after that we set all these wheels in motion and said, you know what, we get it. We're going to fix it. We're going to address it. And I wish they had been here for that discussion, because maybe if they had been there for that discussion, or we'd been there earlier, they would have understood it better. And just so you're clear, when they did call, and it's in my town manager's report, here from Monday, October 18th. And when I received a notice today, we were taken off Jefferson's media agenda tonight in regard to EMS, as they were canceling the meeting. You know, I tried to impart to her, to Lynn, the importance of this. And I'm not saying it was her at all. I'm just saying, I'm sure she went back and said, this is an important thing. It is important. And, you know, you can revisit ARPA. I mean, it's a matter of choice. And that's where I'm at with that, because I thought about this a lot last night. I thought about it at 2 o'clock in the morning when I woke up thinking about it. I thought about it again this morning. You know, I came and I talked to Richard. It's a choice. You know, do you have a special town meeting? Do you have do you revisit your ARPA? You know, is broadband more important than someone's life? I mean, that's a decision that select board has to make. And they have to make it now, you know, to say, well, we're going to wait for the voters in March. No, that's on you. That's your responsibility, you know, between now and March. You have options. You're choosing not to exercise them. You know, there was no phone call today. I was sure there would be a phone call today. And just so you are aware, I sent an email this morning to Lynn and told her we were definitely having our meeting and that the select board members were invited. I made a point of doing that this morning so that they knew. So, you know, I expected a phone call saying, hey, let's get together. Is there a way we can work out like a cost per call between now and March? Because essentially what they're saying is, well, you're going to have to run like you've always run, paying more money to your employees. And you're going to have to do that from now to March. And if it doesn't pass, then I don't understand that. I don't understand that stance as an elected official in a town. But again, I don't live there. I'm not their town manager. I was expecting something different. So that's where we're at. So I guess why you all are here tonight is I don't know how to proceed. I don't know what to tell them as far as what happens January 1st.
I have an opinion on that. They've known from very early on what the deadline was. They have not acted. They have not asked to meet with us. They've taken no action on their part. They've asked questions which aren't really relevant to what it costs us to operate and provide a service, and to help us at least recoup some of the expense of providing that service. We gave them the date of January 1. And as of that date, and I know this hurts you to hear this, Richard, I say we don't roll. If they call in from Jefferson, they can go to Delta or they can go to CLC or someone else to get the service they need. But it shouldn't be on us, because we're certainly not going to be reimbursed for the costs we incur. And I think the taxpayers of Waldoboro have had enough. And it just isn't fair to them to expect them to foot that bill when Jefferson is fully capable of bearing those costs. And we're not being punitive. I mean, we're not asking for the money that we spent on them over the last 10 years that we didn't get reimbursed from for insurance or from them as a.
Well, and I just want to give you that last year, that 41,000 and the 71 calls, that was just year end, June 30th of 2021.
Yeah.
We haven't
That's
even.
even 6 months on their
6
budget.
months.
Yeah. So
No, that's the number from July 1st of 2020 to June 30th of 2021. I mean, our current totals, where we're at with calls with them, are up from last year, and I have that here. I mean,
Have you got to figure out what those 71 calls actually cost us, not including the 42,000?
in 2021, we're up to 181 calls.
that's in Jefferson.
That's in Jefferson. And they made the comment last night that the gentleman whose name who's the other select board member?
I think it is Johnson.
Johnson, Mr. Johnson. He said, well, we're the best insurance payer. I'm like, no, you're not. And I did that calculation today. And, based on our budget and what we consider our uncollectible allowance, they are at 35% of that uncollectible allowance. So, it's hard. And it's a hard call for me, believe me, to say, hey, come January 1st, and I talked with you on the way back last night, was, do we give them 2 weeks, to get their ducks in a row? I can't make that decision. You have to make that decision. I know, any of my, and I will say this, and any of my people in EMS, our people, not just mine, would have a hard time not going to a call. That will be very difficult.
It will be.
But at the same token, if you're going to stand there in a public meeting and say something about the service we've provided, I can't imagine doing that. And that was done last night. I mean, Bob, you heard it.
Yep.
I just have to say, I believe that we have the finest staff. We share many of the same people here that CLC has. They are the finest staff. I have watched them perform miracles. We walk among angels with them. And to hear what I heard last night, that was hard, and I don't believe it. And if there has been complaints about the service we provide, that should have went to Richard Lash, and it should have went or to me, But most importantly, it should not have been done in a public meeting at the end of the meeting you're walking out the door. I think we deserved much more respect than that.
I just want to say that Waldeboro EMS and the Jefferson First Responders, Jefferson Fire Department, we have always worked excellent together. So this is
That's what I always heard.
not about that level of care. It's more between the
It's political. Political.
Yeah, but we have always had, and actually, this is Darren Walker from Jefferson. He's assistant.
We've heard good things about you.
Yeah, and actually, we was the ones that talked this afternoon, and but we've always had a super relationship. We've always got along well, worked well together, and I can give it.
Yeah, there's no issues whatsoever between Jefferson Fire and Rescue and Waldeboro Ambulance, Waldeboro Fire. I don't know. I wasn't there last night. I don't know what took place. Whether it was a misunderstanding on one way or the other, I have no idea, but I wasn't there. And I can assure you, as far as scenes, whatever, we have never had an issue whatsoever.
And he may have meant he had complaints from residents. I don't know.
I don't know the answer either.
I don't know
As
the
far
answer
as-
to that.
As far as the fire department goes,
That's good to hear.
we have never had any issues whatsoever.
I always thought that it was a wonderful working relationship, and I was taken aback by that. I really.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you understand what we're going through?
I do. I understand both sides of it.
Yep.
I do have a question is when was the January 1st date mentioned?
We gave it to them for the beginning of their budget year. So their budget year starts January 1st.
Yeah.
It goes January 1st to December 31st.
Correct.
But when did you send it to say that January would be
September.
in September?
So September, they got the thing that said for your next budget. I made that clear to Lynn in our conversation on the 18th. And I think that's part of the issue. And I don't expect them to give us $110,000 for 6 months. And I explained that in my email in November is that's prorated per month. That's going to be 6 months. And then we have to start over again July 1st. And I think that is, again, you can't just email questions. This required, in my opinion, a face-to-face meeting. The courtesy of coming to the office, sitting down, let me go over it with you. Then we'll come to a public meeting. I'll even go to a public meeting. Invite me to the table. We'll sit down. We'll talk about it. It was a different tenor last night. And believe me, I'm from Jersey, so nothing really surprises me ever. Last night surprised me. I was.
You weren't prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for
I
that.
was
I didn't
like-
expect that.
I mean, I knew people were upset. I've heard a lot. It's a small town. Lots of people talk. But I was not prepared for that. And I was not, again, I wasn't going to argue points because I felt like we were beating our head. It just wasn't getting through. And, you know, I talk about the calls that we don't get reimbursed for. There's 71 of them. That's a big chunk. There's, you know, they didn't even want to talk about the outstanding balances. But we want that revenue, but we don't want the other stuff that comes with it.
No, and I think some of it is from I think it was $11,000 last year for Waldeboro and CLC, and then going to jump to 162,000, I believe. Don't
Right.
quote me on the numbers, but and I think what they're trying to do, and I'm just thinking out loud here because I don't know,
Right.
is that they're trying to sell that to the taxpayers of why.
Right.
And I believe what Mr. Johnson wants is your revenue part of it is to the whole picture. You know, what the expenditures are projected to be, what the revenue is projected to be. That way there, I think the numbers are a little bit more not equal, but you know what I mean? They're a little bit more together now.
Right.
So like you said, they sent a check for $7,000, but in the revenue line, there was only $2,000.
Right.
And I understand what you're saying, but once the check is cashed for $7,000, that's facts. So why not put that number there? Why not put?
Because that budget was done in March of 2021
Mhm.
or 2020. I think that check was for, I think that ends, that check covers the end till this November, till December 31st of this year.
Correct, this
So
year.
that was done March of 2020, that budget.
Which we're on a different budget cycle.
Well, so, and here's where I think some of the confusion may have been. is
Exactly.
You guys are July to June,
Yep.
where January to December.
Right.
So, because Lynn forwarded me the email, the one that
Mm-hmm.
September of the $110,000, and that's why I'm asking when the January 1st was out there. Because
And that's what I said, because I said that in another email to Lynn.
because I haven't seen any emails with any dates
Yes.
of,
Well,
the dates that they're gonna be.
right. So,
So I think what they were thinking, and I don't know, but I think they were thinking, okay, well, once we have it in March and then this starts you guys' fiscal
Right.
year, which is July.
Mhm.
Which I'm gonna be honest with you, that's how we thought it. That's how we read the email at the firehouse.
Right.
How we
And the-
interpreted it, because there was no dates in it. The one
Because-
that I got anyway.
because the issue becomes, again, that conversation needed to be had back in September. You know, that is part of it. And we also had to make changes to be even able to answer the calls.
Mhm.
And the silence, I mean, and I'll tell you, I mean, I think I mentioned it publicly many times. I haven't heard from Jefferson, you know? And I'm reading in the newspaper, the reaction was, well, we'll go to all these different places. Okay. Well, maybe that's what they're doing, you know, and I understood that, you know, believe me, this was not what we wanted to do. You know, our share of the bill is much more expensive than what, you know, we're charging the towns we serve. I get where, you know, and I tried to tell him last night, you know, the preliminary budget will be done in the second week of January for going forward. And I said, you know, next year we're looking at a $1.4 million budget versus almost 1 million this year. But again, I don't think he even wanted to understand. He wants just the good revenue. It's those offsets to the revenue that are difficult, you know. And again, a conversation in an office setting where you could have that one-on-one, well, that courtesy was given to Nick. It was not given at CLC. It was not given to us. And I really felt like it was, you know, it was different. It was different than anything I've experienced before. No offense,
No.
but you know, it's a hard conversation to have. And I agree, because the gentleman, I don't know who he was sitting next to me, who wanted to have us audited.
We're audited every single year. What is this?
He, you know, he kept grumbling that, you know, well, you should be audited, or, you know, he was totally against it. But no matter what I said to him, he was never going to understand that these are the issues. And he at one point said, well, it's always been done this way. And I get that. I wish that we all could treat it like it's just, the word went out of my mind, mutual aid. But it's not. We can't. It's taxpayer money. We can't treat it like it's mutual aid. Mutual aid is, we have a structure fire, we're going. We have a structure fire, you're coming. But it can't be 171 calls a year is not mutual aid. And, you know, and that's what complicates it.
Another thing we've looked at, and you're probably, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, we had to write $500,000 worth of bad debt off to get our books straightened out. We're trying to prevent that from happening again, because it's the taxpayers of Waldeboro that had to suck that up.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's what we're trying to do.
But I do know in the past, I want to say, 3 years ago, so we sat down, and between the insurance money that was brought in, there was actual profit from Jefferson that was made to the town of Waldeboro.
Profit, but what about the 71 calls or whatever calls
Right.
were not paid for?
Or the difference.
So, right, and I,
You see what I'm saying?
no, and I totally understand that, but what I'm saying is
Yep.
from my understanding, it was.
I'm sure there was profit, but what about the
Well,
losses?
wait,
There's
there's never profit in
There never
EMS.
was. I mean, we've got capital costs we incur. You don't
Right.
get any depreciation on
Right.
that.
Well,
Uh,
there's, I'm not gonna argue with you.
Yeah, but I see where you're gonna say, well, but you're here anyway, but I could be we could be running transports. And that is where we would make money
Right.
versus 911 calls in
Yeah,
Jefferson.
once you do that, you take the patient care, not the patient care, what's the word I'm looking for, Richard?
Just put the patient first.
No, shoot.
I guess I know what you're trying to say.
No, as far as, some of these bigger ambulance services, they much rather do transfers.
Oh, because there's more money in it.
Because
There's more money in it.
Money in it, and the problem that we're seeing is a lot of ambulance services, there's more money in it, but when the 911 call comes in, there's less and less ambulances to provide that service.
Exactly,
No.
and that's kind of where we're at and I think that's the piece that's missing when we had the conversation last night,
They needed to hear that from you.
is that
We're not doing the transfers, we're taking care of people.
we're taking care of people.
No, and
But
I
In
understand.
order to survive and to say to our taxpayers why we should be going to Jefferson, because we could be running transfers and making more money. And that's a budget committee question every year. Trust me, that is a budget committee question we go through every year. Richard stands up and he does what he does. There's a cost to that service. And it might be more than has ever been paid in that history. And I guess if it was just us saying it, but Wiscasset's now charging for calls. I know CLC's going through this whole rigmarole. I totally get it. But again, we have to answer, CLC answers to a board of directors. We answer to the town of Waldeboro people. And you've made me feel better about the service part because that really disturbed me.
Yeah, I think you find that it was a misunderstanding one way or the other. And like I said, we have nothing but praise and respect for all services.
Good.
We've always worked, and there's been some pretty nasty calls that no person should ever have to go through.
Exactly.
And even after the fact, we all work through it as a team. We have never had any issues whatsoever, at least in the last 10, 15 years anyways, that I can remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I would just think that if it was something that needed to be said that publicly, that I would have heard about it or Richard would have heard about
And
it.
that's why I think somewhere along the line, there was a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of the question or whatever it may have been. Like I said, I wasn't there, so I can't answer.
I'm hoping that.
Any more discussion? Any comments? Jan, you still there?
I am.
Okay.
I was just curious who I'm listening to. I recognize Bob, you, Julie.
Oh, that is Darren Walker. It's Derek Booker's cousin.
Tell everybody.
It is cousin Derek?
Yes, it's Darren. It's the D cousins.
Is he from Jefferson?
He is their deputy fire chief, I believe.
Oh, okay. And who are the select people in Jefferson?
I'm going to ask Emily to tell us that. There's Miss Groton,
Jigger Clark.
Jigger Clark.
Oh, I know Jigger.
Yes, that was the name I cool name.
Jigger, yeah. His real name's not Jigger, but he's always been called Jigger.
Yes, and then Mr. John, I think it's Greg Johnson.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. So it sounded to me, just listening in, that there may have been, it's a 3-member board, right?
Correct.
In Jefferson? Are there some personality issues that have entered into the discussion?
I don't know them.
I didn't see any.
I don't know them to comment on that.
Okay, you didn't feel that there was anything like that? but I'm hearing that that there were some complaints about our service, and yet the people who have worked with us do not have complaints.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct. So
that
it's,
made me think there's
so it's,
something else involved here.
yeah, and it could be a resident had an issue. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
But it's nice to know it's not amongst our services.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm sorry it's got to this point, in both in time and in emotion. That doesn't seem to be that was necessary to take this much time to get to the discussion and get to a point where people seem to have some anxiety about the situation. Do we know what our options are right now?
Well, our options are we continue to run and risk the voters shooting it down and not being paid. Or we stop running January 1st, or we give them time, a time period in which to find an alternate service. Or decide that they'll take a measure of using ARPA funds, a special town meeting, or tax anticipation notes to get them through.
But these are all their options.
But those are their options. We have to decide, I think the select board has to decide, what date do I give them as a date where, we can't go
They make one of those options, choose an option.
choose an option.
Yeah.
Or they come back to us and say, look, we'll pay you per call till we get to this date. But, again, I don't know. I haven't had that discussion. I mean, I don't know if that's something select board would even be open to, but again, nobody's had that discussion, so.
I mean, they're not at the meeting tonight, Jan. They were invited.
Yes, and nobody showed up, but the
Assistant fire chief.
deputy fire chief is there.
Correct.
Who is there from Jefferson tonight?
Just him.
Just the deputy fire chief.
Okay.
As a resident, I think. I don't think he's representing the town.
No,
Mhm.
selectmen are, yeah.
Yeah.
Selectmen are total bits. We're separate.
I just can't, I can't get my head around the fact that they are not taking this
It
seriously.
makes me sad that our neighbors don't want to just come talk about it and see if we can't become problem solvers and see what we can do. That makes me sad.
And I don't think that $110,000 number is going to change. I mean, we've been very consistent with it's not a negotiable number. It's an explainable number, but not a negotiable number. But to get you through to where we could get to that, yes, be a problem solver. But again, that's, even the one gentleman, Jigger. Jigger.
But when you jig for mackerel.
Jigger said to me, or said to us, he even suggested using the next $7,000 in the budget that would start January 1st in the interim, to make a cover instead of the whole year. He actually was, I think, trying to come up with a solution to the short term. But like I said, I haven't heard from anybody other than now, Mr. Walker.
We even suggested to them, and this is not a short-term solution, it's more of a medium to long-term solution, that we sit down and talk about a municipal services agreement. And we've done this with Friendship and Cushing in regard to trash removal. I mean, we might be able to structure something along those lines, but I don't have warm fuzzies anymore. They're gone. They've made this into a business deal, and it's not a neighborly thing anymore.
Right, that's unfortunate.
Yep.
I'm glad to hear that Jigger was inclined to talk, anyway, have discussion. Why? And what is it that they would like? Aside from going back to however it was last year.
Well, I think that's what they want.
Yeah, that's what
But they would like to have,
If we can't, and so.
Right,
would
so
there
they would
alternatives?
like, they want to take the difference between revenue and expenditures and only pay 11.7% of that. But they don't want to have the discussion about the revenue losses. That's the piece that's missing. So
Okay.
no discussion about, okay, your share of that is 71 calls that we couldn't bill for. What's the average cost per call of what we would have made? That piece of it, which is why we went with strictly expenditures. And I tried to explain to them last night too, we didn't even put capital expenditures in that. We just went operating. So we weren't, charging them for
Replacing
the ambulances, and that,
Yeah.
to me, that's a huge chunk. And
How much are they up to now, Richard, to replace an ambulance?
About 220.
so, and that's something that we did not include. But again, I think, and I think you're right. And it's like I feared, and why I put it in the emails, I think we're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
Apples to oranges.
Oranges,
And
yeah.
we need to be talking in apples.
It sounds like there's some misunderstanding on the big picture to begin with. There are even definitions of what revenues are.
And how the budgets work. And I am aware that some towns budget exactly what they're expecting. We've just never done that, especially with EMS, because if we have another COVID year, and in the years prior, there's been shortfalls in revenue, and that's, again, so you can't say, well, we want to share the revenue, but we don't want to take the loss, that they go hand in hand. And I agree. I think that's part of the misconception too, is people think we make money. And I think that got started, because, well, you're making this money. But again, I think it has to be said, because we're providing a service, us making a little bit of money too it's not a bad thing, because there are costs that have to be covered. I don't think we ever make money. I mean, we're certainly not going to be making $1 million. I mean, the revenue is pretty much been steady around $600,000. So anything over that is an increase, but again, we have to offset. There's a cost to the service. What is that worth? And I think that's where they have to decide. That's a choice. What is that worth?
I believe so it'd be my 7th budget on the select board. I think back when I first started, it cost the taxpayers of Waldeboro $60,000 to run this. How much is it now, Richard? Gonna cost the taxpayers?
Lead to below 2, probably.
Or 3, closer to 3.
Is it closer to 3?
It's closer to
For
3.
the taxpayers of Waldeboro to service other towns, and if they're not paying their fair share, I mean, what's to say that the taxpayers, how much would our tax revenue, taxpayers reduction would be if we didn't service Jefferson?
You can't figure that out. That's a hard one, because you'd have to do the if you're not doing them, then you're going to do the transfers.
So you'd still make
You're
revenue.
still gonna make up the 110,000 somewhere.
Right,
We're going to have to.
right.
So
Well,
I'm just
either
saying-
it's in transfers or it's in.
Or it's servicing another community. And I think that's why.
Taxes for Waldeboro will be.
And I think that's why. And I wasn't here when you started with Jefferson, but I think that was why I think public service is important. It's a noble thing. I do. I think it's one of the,
One of the reasons we got started with Jefferson is because of the wait times that they had for Delta. I'm correct, right? And because there was wait for Delta to come out of Augusta, sometimes Waterville for their patients. And then when we started, we was getting there with it, kind of where it was at Jefferson, but in a reasonable time.
Mhm.
And I think that was huge. I can remember talking with Darren back then, that it was the wait times is why they was looking for alternatives.
And I said it last night and I have it written down here, we just started the budget, so I can't be, but we're looking at a $470,000 increase, and that revenue staying the same.
You think Jefferson's gonna sell 110,000? Try selling 400,000 to your taxpayers.
No, and believe me, I understand it, but like you said, you've got to make up that money someplace, so it's, if you got to make up that money by doing transfers, then the people in Waldeboro could be in the same situation we were back years ago with Delta, waiting an hour for an ambulance. It's reality. No matter how you do it, you have to take one call at a time.
You do, but you also can pick and choose, and you can pick and choose based on the number of crews you have on,
That's correct.
and that's, that's part of it. I mean, and I tried to explain this last night, we already increased the budget. When we did the budget back in March, remember, we went up for the nighttime. And then we had to rethink it,
Because it wasn't working.
because it wasn't working. I mean, and that's the thing, is that we realized, and I said it last night, we had to pay people more because they could make more. My favorite saying is delivering packages than delivering patients. And it's a lot less hassle sometimes, and we needed to value our employees. But I just need to know what to tell them. So Bob, you're at a drop dead date of
I'd say
January
January
1st.
1st. They have options. Let them choose one. If I were sitting where they are, and I'm not, but if I were, I would call an open town meeting as quickly as possible. Julie's volunteered to be there to attend it.
I will have to have a special jacket for that.
Sorry.
I need a special
Yeah, you
jacket.
probably will.
John, would love you.
I'm sure Richard would go to explain something, say, obviously things that their select board is either unwilling or unable to explain. Because they're relying on numbers and not on concepts. And it's really the concepts that need to be gotten across here. So that's what I would do. I would stick to our date. I don't think we ought to be losing any more money on this relationship than we already have. And let the chips fall where they may based on their decisions, because really it's up to them at this point.
I think we found ourselves in the fallacy of equivocation, where we have one town is looking at one definition of a program and another town is looking at a different definition of a program. And that puts us at odds. And I don't know I don't think we can come to a amicable solution until both sides understand are operating from the same definition. I think that makes it really hard, because they're not understanding where we're coming from. And I don't seem to understand where they're coming from. But I think I'd give them January 1st is just very, very close. And this is a time where people don't have like extra time or thought process time.
Well, I think that, you can have all the meetings you want, but the battlefield has already been prepped over there. They said, well, nobody said anything to us till what?
Well,
November, December.
That's not true.
And they're gonna hold that.
We've known that. for
And
a
so
long
you can
time.
walk into
I'm waiting for them.
any meeting you want, and you're not gonna win.
You don't have to win, but I don't know. I just think we need to give it the old college try and then, give them an out and then go from there. And if they don't take it, come around, then we have to do what we have to do.
Well, I've heard 2 weeks thrown around. We give them till the middle of January and they gotta get their stuff together. That's it.
That sounds more reasonable than the first, because we're in a holiday week and it's.
I mean, they should be able to do something in 2 weeks.
Right, after the holiday is over, they should be able to get to business and.
Yep, absolutely. We have to do it here. I mean, it's not like, it's not rocket science. You go do the work. I mean, all of us on this board have stepped up and done whatever we've had to do and needed to do to keep the town going.
Well, I have to say, I do appreciate last night when I texted all of you at 8:00 that you were here, because we didn't think we were gonna have any business.
I get right back to you. I mean,
Yeah.
the job doesn't stop just because you're at the meeting and you go home. I mean, I got phone calls, I get texts last night, after I get out of another meeting that I was in, that what went on at the meeting. So, I mean, it doesn't stop just right here. So, and this shouldn't stop either. Just
All right,
because-
so we don't have to worry about any deaths in Jefferson. They're gonna be taken care of.
For 2 weeks at least. I
Yeah.
mean, if that's the way you go.
I mean, 'cause
we
really,
haven't heard
that's-
from Will, we haven't heard from.
We want to do whatever we can for the citizens or the people that need assistance in Jefferson, even,
But I think they need to know that drop dead date is. Right, and you can't, now.
so before the middle of January, they need to do two things. Find the money or find a provider.
I think it's fair. The article in Lincoln County News was October 6th, where they were interviewed in it and they knew about the increase. And Waldeboro's had to make tough decisions to cover our part. Friendships
Absolutely.
worked very well with
We've had
us.
2 meetings where we've had to increase the EMS twice to get what we needed for services.
It's just,
I mean, if you
if you haven't,
we've had to do what we've had to do.
it's been in the news nonstop about EMS crisis.
Richard's famous.
It's a harsh reality. I mean,
That's the things.
and I think the formula we're using is fair to all parties involved. I think we need to give them a little time, because I don't think it's fair to the residents
No,
of Jefferson that might support it
Yep.
because of the dragging of the feet that their selectmen or select board has done.
Yep.
So, but that's it. I mean,
somebody like to make up that motion?
So I'd make the motion that we give them until the
January
first business
15th?
day after January 14th. I don't have my calendar open.
Well, January 15th is a Saturday. Do you want to go to the
So it'd be
17th?
January 14th, the Friday, or the
Be a
Monday.
holiday in there, Martin Luther King Day should be in that neighborhood.
17.
Yeah,
January 17th?
That's Martin Luther King Day.
Okay,
But-
so say January 18th or 19th?
so you could do 14th or 18th.
I'd do the 14th. And that they've made a decision by that time, as the colonel said, to find another option or to agree to the suggestion that we've made to them, the proposal we've made to them. And in the meantime, cover the expenses we incur for servicing Jefferson. That's the motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Is there any,
So you want remuneration for any services we provide between now and the 14th.
I think we have a right to expect that.
sure.
is there any more discussion? You all set, Jan?
I am.
Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Can I just have clarification? So when you say cover services, do you mean make up the difference between what insurance covers and what we build?
That's right.
And what about in the instance of a no transport?
We're covered on that. They pay us. We're not getting it from the insurance company. Our expectation going forward, our suggestion, our proposal to them is always included that they cover us for that kind of thing.
Okay.
Maybe that'll get them motivated. That's the only way I can see it, is for them to.
Yeah, we called our public meeting and we had a meeting in November. We had our meeting on December 14th.
Mhm. Yeah, I was surprised that they were so reticent to take any of those steps.
Really blew me
And
away.
I
Is it 2 weeks that it has to be public,
7 days, isn't it?
10 days.
Or 10 days?
so it's 10 days.
But they might have an ordinance that says something differently.
Yeah, I think, I don't quote me, but
I don't know.
2 weeks,
I think they said
They
that
said
last
10
night.
days last
10
night.
days.
But I mean,
Okay.
I think we would be reasonable.
So, so
I think if they were in the process, I think it would change things.
Right.
But if they're not in the process, that means they don't really care.
I mean, they have I think their first meeting, if they do the first and thirds, right?
every
Mondays.
other.
Or
So
every other.
So let's see here, they met last night, which was the 27th, so they're not gonna meet again until the 10th.
Okay. But, you know, they can always call a special
So
select board
I
meeting.
guess
They can meet
my
anytime.
question is
Select board.
does, and I don't know the answer to
There's
the
only
question,
three of
but I don't know if the 14th gives them enough time to hold the public meeting
But I
and
think,
then the vote.
but I think what Abden was saying is, as long as
As
they're
long as
in
they're
that
the process of
process.
doing something, I think we're fine with
Well,
that.
that's not what the motion was.
That, the motion could be changed at another meeting. The motion won't be changed. The motion is the motion. But if we have a subsequent meeting and they come back and ask us for something,
Okay.
We'll
I-
consider it.
I misunderstood your motion.
And I mean, it would be good if somebody came here. I mean, I have to say.
It's good that you came.
It's good that you came,
It
but
actually
really,
showed somebody's,
Yeah, well, again, it's.
but I do think too that they need to, even if they have to schedule a special meeting, it's
Right, and
worthy of their
With the
time.
holiday coming and
Right.
everything, and the newspaper's printed
Right,
today,
right,
so they can't even get anything into the newspaper until next
till
Tuesday.
next Tuesday, right.
And then it's a minimum of 7 days for advertisement. 'cause it only comes out
I'm
once a week.
hopeful that, you know, we'll hear something in the next couple of days.
So what your motion is, I thought your motion was the 14th, if you don't have an answer by the 14th, it's done.
that's right.
That is
That
his
is the
motion,
motion.
but what I'm trying to say is, I
That's
think,
not what he just said.
No, what I, you misunderstood me.
Well, you
The
just-
motion is clear. There's a deadline.
Yeah,
And I feel strongly there needs to be a deadline
yeah,
because since September, there's been a deadline and nothing has been done. And I don't want to see this stretched out until the end of March because the perception is that your select board is doing something.
okay, but
That
you.
isn't going to cut it with me.
but
If they
you
need
just
an
said that
extension,
If they had another meeting and there was progress that.
if we had a meeting in January, a first meeting in January, and there was evidence they were taking steps to address the issue by meeting with Julie and Richard and setting dates for meetings and so forth. Yeah,
Because the 14th is not a drop dead date then.
well,
it is now.
it is
Make no
now, but I
mistake,
think
it's a
they
drop
have
dead date at
to,
this point.
the motion was for the 14th to be
That's what I
the
thought.
drop dead date. But what I think you're hearing is that during that time, if there is evidence that they're moving and they're taking this seriously,
Mhm.
I think select board would be open to
A different date.
a different
Yes,
date.
correct.
Okay.
But if there's no movement, then
Right, and
it's the
it's,
14th.
right. And I think that, you know, our next meeting is on the 11th. So I think if there was a way that somebody in a position of authority came to our next meeting after they have their meeting, that would be a good idea. And I will make sure this gets expressed to them also officially, but
We'll even put it on the agenda as an agenda item. Meet with Jefferson Select Board Representative or Select Board to discuss EMS services on January 11th.
and they are always welcome to come and talk to Richard and I anytime. And I have select board members who are, some are retired, some are often in the office during the day. And I'm sure that two of them, because we can have two meet,
Right.
would be more than happy to attend.
I mean, Bob and I went to the friendship meeting,
Yep,
you know, it's, we do this stuff all the time. It's not like it's, like I said, it doesn't end here. We go to meetings that people don't even realize we go to, you know, and they should be doing the same, you know.
It's really surprising they haven't
I'm
come
just
to any
worried
meetings.
about the citizens of Jefferson. If 3 people are making a decision for all the citizens of Jefferson, and do the citizens know that? You know, are they aware of it? And
I think they're in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Depends how well Emily does.
yeah, I don't know how they operate there, but it just doesn't seem right. You know, we have one citizen who's coming in and trying to be a problem solver. There must be others there. And do they know what's going on? And is there a way that they can know what's going on? And they should be able to come to, you know, talk to their select board and come to our meeting if they choose.
well said, Jan.
We all set?
Yep.
All right, I guess we're moving along.
Do we have anything else?
There's no old business, items for the next agenda.
We have, Bob's already got one.
We've got one.
Yeah.
Been a big one, yeah.
Put that on the top of the list.
Did you have anything to add, Richard?
Nope.
Thank you for coming.
Sorry, Richard. Put you on a spot like this, but
No, I just,
you gotta draw a line in the sand somewhere.
I understand the business part of it, but I also, my heart's with patient care and taking care of people. I wouldn't be in this business if it
I know.
wasn't.
Yep.
So it's difficult.
Yep.
Yep.
All there.
And you are valued.
Yes, very much so.
Thank you guys for your time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for coming.
So we got one item for the agenda. Is there any others?
I think that's gonna be a really long
That's
item.
gonna be a long meeting.
Yep. Okay. So would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
I just gotta get